Hello art students! I'm going to show you how to break a complex drawing like this one down into bite-sized chunks by using a grid transfer method. The first step is to download Photoshop Express onto your Chromebook by going into the Google Play Store. Then open it up. My photos have already popped up because I imported them from my Google Drive. So to do that, you're going to find your photos in your drive, pick the one you want to use, press the download button, and that will download it into your Chromebook's hard drive. And that hard drive folder will automatically pop up in Photoshop Express. Click on that photo again, and the first step is to convert it into black and white. So we're going to click on the overlapping circles and then scroll over to B and W for black and white to convert. And then next we're going to click the cropping tool, and that's going to give us a grid. Now we need an even grid for this project, so we're going to click the 1:1 aspect ratio, and that is going to give us a square grid, a perfect square. So then move your photo around within that square until you have a composition that works for you. And then what you're going to want to do is take a screenshot of that grid. So we're going to take a screenshot, and then that will ensure that you will be able to keep those grid lines for your reference image. So once you've done that, go ahead and open up that file, and then you can see that you can now enlarge the drawing as you go to work with, and that will really help. And you still have those grid lines, they haven't disappeared. Now the next step is we've got to grid our paper, and most of us are going to be working on 8.5 by 11 paper. So the largest our squares can be is 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, because that will give us a 7-inch square, and that will fit on an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper like this one. So the first thing I need to do is mark my paper at every 2.5 inches, because remember, that's the size of each square in my grid. So I have 2.5, 5 inches, and then 7.5. Then I'm going to move my ruler down into the same position down below and do the same thing. And then I'm going to mark the sides at every 2.5 inches. So same process there. And then I'll move my ruler down to the bottom. Now this step is really important because we're going to have some excess and it needs to line up in exactly the same way. It's also really important that you make these marks all the way around so that your grid is exact. You want those lines to be as perfect as you can get them. Now I have this overhang and it lines up in the same spot along each of those sides. So now I'm going to connect the dots. Now be careful. You need to make very, very light marks here. You want your grid to disappear into the drawing, so those lines need to be very, very light. Then once you've got it all gridded out, you can choose to cut off that excess if you'd like. That's up to you. Next, I'm going to label my grid along the top, A, B, C, and down the sides, 1, 2, 3. Now I've trimmed off that excess so you can see what this looks like, and my drawing paper is ready to go. Now you can see my drawing is quite a bit larger. If you have large drawing paper at home, just make your grid bigger. Now I'm all set to start my drawing. I have my reference image with the grid that lines up with my drawing paper.